we'll open up the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance at 7.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, would you take a roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milky,
I am here.
Trustee Bills,
Here.
Trustee Hauk, Trustee Thering,
Here.
Clerk Cody here, Treasurer Rice and Trustee Brown are excused.
Thank you. Happy to entertain any motions regarding the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
Support?
Motion by Bill, support by Cody. Any discussion? Seeing no one jumping forward. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously to approve the agenda as presented. That brings us to item 5, presentations. And I notice Sheriff Main is with us this evening. I'd be happy to give you the floor.
Good evening, everybody. This is my annual tour to all the townships. I'm trying to get around everybody before the snow flies, and of course, you know, most of the township meetings are all on the same night, so it's a little struggle. But I'm getting it down, so it's quick, and will only be a few minutes, and I'll get you back to your business. So, Mr. Chairman, if I can approach, I will provide you with your stats from 2021. We had 5,798 incidents. Those are just the incidents that the Isabel County Sheriff's Office handled, not anything that maybe state police, sheriff, anybody, CMU that handled something in the township for us. So we started out the year in 2021 with 53 employees. Out of the 14 deputies, I was down 7. I had 2 go to the city, 1 go to CMU. I had 2 off on medical, and I had 1 that broke his foot in a fight at Walmart with a retail fraud suspect. So we kind of started off about 50% strong, and that's a tough one to swallow. I know Ms. Bills has been to the meetings, and she's probably heard our woos with overtime at the Board of Commissions, but it's, you know, trying to keep 2 people on was tough. I will tell you now we're almost back to there. We've got 1 position that we got a young candidate coming on board here shortly. He'll be going to the academy, coming out of the Marines. Solid kid. Is actually his dad's a police officer in the city for years, so we're real excited about that. And we got 1 in a school, but they went for the school grants. We maybe get that position back too, so maybe we'll get 2. So corrections is fully staffed. Roads getting close. So I haven't had that since I started in 2015, so we'll see how it goes. It did 15,575 incidents last year. That's 1.77 an hour. We had 11% were arrests, 30% criminal, 28% non-criminal, 26% traffic. We were 1,599 incidents higher than any other agency in the county. So even half-staffed, we were pulling quite a load there for a while. Still are. 1,196 traffic crashes. 781 of them were car deers. We had 1,504 traffic stops. We had 292 personal injury accidents. We had 570 domestic assaults. We drove 321,986 miles last year. And we had 136 transports. Our busiest month was August, and our slowest month was February. We did over 531 arrests, physical arrests to the jail for just our agency. And we did 309 FOIAs. So I don't know who does your FOIAs here, but we did a lot of FOIAs. So I got 1 person just doing FOIAs every day. Our Marine Patrol, which is money we get from the state, was we did 87.5 hours in Marine Patrol, 99 inspections, and 16 warnings. Unfortunately, you know, with half staff, we struggled getting people on the water this year. Just didn't have the resources, and they kind of based that on the amount of time we spend there. So we're kind of hoping that they just kind of were looked last year as an anomaly and continue to give us some funding at the same level for next year. We had 1,764 people come into the jail last year. And we had a daily average population of 150. We served 172,000 meals. We did over 8,000 health risk appraisal and sick calls to our medical contract that we have with WellPath. They're our biggest contract, but They're there and they service a lot of sick calls. We did have 21 responses to the emergency department this last year, and we had 131 on suicide watch. We had one outbreak in COVID in 2021. We've had a couple of minor ones here and there. So luckily, they've been not severe. We have had a couple where they were almost their time was almost up. They were a week or two out, and we were able to get them out early so they could recover at home and move them on. But knock on wood, we've done pretty well with COVID in the jail. We were a long stretch before we had any cases, so that was really good. But some of the other jails didn't have that kind of luck. We had $23,000 in repairs to the building. That's pretty static from last year. Just one of our repairs about springtime when it was still cold out, we had a heating unit on top of the roof literally explode, and I mean like blew apart. It's about a 30-year-old unit. They were struggling to find parts and pieces. We had Hammer Restoration come in, and for $1,000 a day, we heated the jail. So that went on for a few days, like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, as they found parts. And we were going to send people to Ohio to get parts, and we ended up getting a little closer and got it repaired. But we have a requirement to keep the heating and cooling at a certain level, and that was kind of a struggle, but we managed through it. We received over $188,309 in grants. One of those grants was from the tribe for a new boat. Our boat we had, this one's about twice the size, so it's great. I wish we could have been on the water more with it, but it's a bigger boat. It's better for our dive team members. And we've increased some of their equipment as well, again, on the dive team, so it's nice to have that newer boat. We appreciated that. I did write a $80,000 2% for the hazmat team. That's a multi-jurisdictional team, that fire departments, and we have a deputy on that as well. They needed new air packs, and they needed somebody to write the grant, so we got it, and we were successful from the tribe, so that was great. We replaced all their air packs, and that team doesn't get used a lot, but if you need it, it's a great team to have in your community, like a great team. I was on it for several years, and it's nice to have. We finished out the body-worn camera program for our corrections staff, and that was a grant for $12,000 from MMRMA, which is our risk management folks. So all of our deputies and all of our correction staff now wear body cams, and it's been a great piece of equipment to have. We provided 4,216 hours of training to our staff in 2021. About the first of the year, we picked up the animal control officer. Answers to the sheriff's office versus he was coming directly to the administrator. He's moved out of the county's building out there where Hats runs the shelter. We've been able to get him a body cam and some new equipment, better stuff, better access. We're actually getting ready to send him some good training, so we're trying to get him, build up a little bit more. He's got into our system now, so we can write the reports to the prosecutor, and it's just been a really good fit so far, so we're glad to have him on board. You may have seen in the paper, we run a couple of human task force or human trafficking task force for underage sex stings. Unfortunately, we were successful. So it's not usually when you say unfortunate and successful in the same sentence, but it is what it is. That is a team or a group that Mecosta, Montcalm, Newaygo, and us are all involved in. The sheriffs, we put that team together. We rotate. They did one in Montcalm here not too long ago. I couldn't make that one, but they're getting ready to run another one in another county out west. So we're just going to keep moving around and running those. So, the charges aren't 50-year in prison charges, but it does identify some of these folks, and unfortunately some of them we've connected to being in our schools, being in our t-ball coaches and things like that. So that's it's a good program to run. We were happy to be able to find some of those predators in our community and root them out. Big project going on. Here back early 2021, when the weather broke, I was invited to go on a boat ride with the 911 director and a lieutenant from CMU to talk about communications. And I think you guys have had conversations about public safety communications in our community. They were struggling. CMU is in heavy construction. They were having problems communicating inside any of their buildings, really. That's pretty critical. We've had a double homicide there, so that's when they can't communicate, that's a problem, right? So they've been struggling between the state and their vendors to get something going. We tested a site on one of their buildings, worked great. And then we couldn't lock down a cost, so they asked me to kind of get involved into it. So with that being said, sir, how are you? So with that being said, we met with Roger Halt and Rick Altman, a lobbyist from CMU. We sat down, we talked, we said, hey, we need to get this project done. As things happened in Lansing, they said, well, because we were asking for a couple $100,000 or whatever, they said, too little. You gotta ask for more. I'm like, we don't need more. No, you gotta ask for more. It's under $5 million. We're like, huh? So we throw a dart at the wall, we hit $4.8 million, and by golly, you get signed to us for this project, $4.8 million. So now we're like, what do we do with $4.8 million, right? So we are this project, we've expanded it. We want to cover CMU, we want to cover Mount Pleasant, we want to cover Union Township, we want to cover all the way to the tribe, all the heavy construction, the box stores, the hospitals that we can't communicate into, all that stuff. And we're pretty confident, we're narrowing down a location using MPSCS, which is the state agency, and Motorola is their sole source vendor. They've showed us maps, we've looked at this, we keep narrowing this down that we can make that happen with $4.8 million and potentially have some money left over to refresh all public safety portables and mobiles, which is in need. We're way out there, about ready to discontinue the ones we have. So our main goal though is to get from basically Union Township all the way out to the tribe, and then maybe get some BDAs, which are antennas on the Shepherd schools, so anything east of us where we've had some problems, we can cover. The one tower we have in our community, 6306, is out in the west, so all the west side is pretty covered pretty well, but most of the heavy construction's from the township line all the way over. So we're pretty excited about making that happen. We're having lots of discussions, meetings, and we're getting ready to hopefully come down with a plan and spend $4.8 million of our tax dollars back here, which is phenomenal. So 2% grant again. We just we put in for a canine, so we have a fully functioning canine unit. That's car, equipment, dog, everything else. He is operational and excited to be there. We haven't had a canine since Leo Majeszewski was here many years ago and retired his last dog out. We've got two or three dogs in the community now between the state police and the tribe and us, and they're a great resource. We had a lost elderly gentleman here a few days ago and was found by a canine unit, so they're invaluable to our community just for those kind of things. So we're pretty excited about that one as well. If you have Facebook, weekly we put up on our Facebook page now a week in review. We're writing about 70 to 75 written reports every 7 days. We take over 300 incidents every 7 days. We take about 25 to 35 crashes every 7 days, about 40 people to jail every 7 days, and then 25 to 40 depending on how many people we got on traffic stops. So we're trying to put those stats up weekly so people can see really what's going on in the communities here, and how busy it's staying. Gosh, anything else? Oh, wait a minute, the jail. So, as you know, we kind of come to a pinch point, unfortunately. We're at a place where the construction management company is saying we need to get vendors and supplies lined up for the next build season. And if we don't, we're going to miss it. The USDA loan expires in April. Currently, the rate we're at, if we were to have to rewrite that to the new rate, we're looking anywhere from 10 to 15 million over the lifespan of the project already, just where the interest rate's at now. So that put some pressure on. We still fell short a little bit. We know that, so we were working on some options, how we're going to make that shortfall become less shortfall. There are some things in the works there and some options. For the last 2 months, we've done this valued engineering, which is like pulling teeth and fingernails, and it's been great. You folks need to know that the structure hasn't changed, the outlook of the structure hasn't changed. Still looks exactly the same pictures that we went through the zoning process and everything. But there was things like, and I use this for example because I still can't wrap my head around this one, but they come and said, okay, if the lockers, like, so the men and women, the lockers, you put stuff in like your lockers, right? Your gym lockers. If we use this company versus this company, it's $100,000 savings. And I'm like, now hold up. Like, are these ones gold and ours are Legos now? Like, how do you save $100,000, right? So they said, well, go down to Elma PD. They just put them into their locker room. Go look at them. So we go down there. They're double doors. They're shelves. They're nice lockers. Like, well, yeah, we're going to save $100,000, right? So a lot of that type of stuff that we've been doing, cameras or access card readers, just all kinds of things. And every time we would shave it down, when we get down where we thought we were pretty close, the cost would just keep climbing. So they just finally had to say, we're going, right? We're locking in, we're going. So that's where we're at. Excited, a lot nervous. Like, I just, I got to pull this off. I've been clear, nobody's going to remember the commissioners or the administrator, but they'll remember Mike Main's name was on that building when it was built. So I want to make sure it gets right. I want to get it done right. So we have so many issues in our current jail with how we're housing and who we're housing, and the mental healths, and every time you get folks that are special needs, they get their own cell. And when you're 70-80% dormitory, that pushes people into other cells together, and you just got to keep, because you can't put them together. And it's been a tough road for the last few years, and the correction staff feel it mentally and physically. And I had a female corrections officer. They were fighting with somebody trying to get them restrained, and kicked her right in the face a couple days ago. Like, it's time for some new design and new abilities. So we're excited, and we appreciate everything the township did and helped with us and moved forward. And I know there's still some conversations back and forth, but we are a go there. So that is it. That is my 10 minutes. I hope I stayed at 10 minutes, but I'll certainly answer any questions that the board might have.
Sheriff,
Yes,
did you have an increase in domestic disturbances in Union Township this year? I see there's a lot.
I would have to look at the sheet from last year. I know we were up domestic assaults overall. I don't have it broke down just for Union Township without looking at last year's, but our calls are, our call load's up. I'm sure it's going to be up, but the calls that we're getting are more aggressive, more violent. We get a lot of gun calls. We had, a gun call again today, like it was clear up in the north part of the county, but it's just a lot of very high level, not necessarily like somebody's fighting behind the alley. Like, we're getting shots fired in parking lots and stuff like that, and that those take a little longer, and we're trying to figure out why and what and how we can continue to battle that as a team of all the LEOs and the law enforcement agencies in the communities. So yeah, absolutely.
What about drugs? Are drugs
Prevalent everywhere.
last year,
Yep, prevalent everywhere. Everything I can't even tell you a crime that didn't involve drugs or alcohol. All of our retail frauds that we are typically based on stealing something to sell, to buy drugs. And that could be any kind of drug. Most of it all mixed with, an opiate of some sort, or something like that. But yeah, it's everything's revolves around it. And our multi-jurisdictional drug team, they give us briefs all the time. And they're working. They're kicking doors in, and they're taking people. And I don't know. I think we need to do some more with our criminal justice reform. It's not working real well when people can come and go on a revolving door. We're having a lot more victims in our community, just because of the fact that nobody's kind of really learning a lesson. It was interesting. I just came from the Sheriff's Association conference this last weekend, and fatal accidents, which I've been in the headlines with fatal accidents the last few weeks here, right? So nationwide, we're seeing this huge increase in crashes and fatals. Some of it, I think, is maybe they come out of COVID thinking that we weren't enforcing stuff, and maybe because the numbers are down for law enforcement, so we're seeing a lot of speed, but we're having this huge increase of non-use of seatbelts, people being ejected from cars and stuff, and I don't know where this is coming from. Like, it's even in a minor crash, if you have your seatbelt on and that airbag goes, you're going to be injured. Like, they have to work in unison, right? So. A lot of speed, a lot of traffic crashes. Yeah.
So I had three questions, but Trustee Bills asked the one I had. But I remember specifically you being here talking about 20 and 21. Domestic violence was a big spike.
Yeah.
And some of that was attributed maybe to some of the lockdown and people being home more. And
Absolutely, and we're having a huge increase with issue with juveniles right now. A big increase of juvenile crime, and I'm not just talking like retail or stealing out of a car. We're talking guns. We're talking like drugs. I think that is a byproduct of what we've locked down home, that kind of thing over the last few years as well. The issue with raise the age from 17 to 18 has affected it, because now all of these 17-year-old violent offenders who used to go to jail now go to a youth home or a lockdown facility. So all these beds are full across the state. That's pushing the courts to send the 14 and 15-year-old violent offenders back home. And we're seeing a lot of repeat offenses and injuries in the homes and running away and stealing and that kind of stuff, just because there's no place to put them. And I know there's a task force in Lansing, they're just starting to spin up to talk about it. I question some of the outcomes that come out of there, but we'll see how it goes. I hope something good comes. So we need some help. So
You mentioned a lot of FOIA. Is that primarily press just trying to get access to what's happening in the sheriff's office?
it's
Or is it different than it used to be?
Yeah, it's all over the board. A lot of them are attorneys. A lot of it is because we do all the civil processes and stuff like that. So if you have a custody dispute, they want to get the report on, so and so or this and that. We get a lot of nationwide ones that are just like, let's see your use of force, let's see this, let's see that. So they're just fishing expeditions a lot of times, but you have, obviously have to treat them all the same.
Right.
So it's just that's all she does. She just sits there all day long, and then and she comes back and she goes like, I got a weird one. You want to look at it? And I'm like, not really, but okay. So
Yeah.
we had one today about animal control and something they investigated, and they wanted to make sure it was investigated properly. I'm like, okay, we'll pull the stuff out, let them look at it, So
Oh, interesting. So I may have some of my information wrong, so you feel free to correct me. But
Okay.
I think last year was there was a new contract between the Village of Isabella and the Sheriff's Office,
correct.
and you were providing an officer there. Is that continuing now, or?
So it is. It's been real successful on our end, and I believe, talking to Tim up there, Tim Wolf, that they've enjoyed it a lot. So how that ran was, or is running, they were using some ARPA dollars, and we were doing 1 or 2 shifts a week. We were breaking it up all over the place. We were just, not static, pretty dynamic where we were going. They'll go up there and they'll work 8-hour shifts. We started off soft, and now they've said, well, okay, now some of the repeat offenders that are, taking advantage of it, step up the enforcement and stuff. We've had a few, crimes there. One of my detectives was working the overtime shift and ended up in a pursuit with somebody that was an absconder we've been looking for a while, and a big fight in the park right in the door of his house, and I got all the neighbors like, oh my God, what's going on? But they were also happy because this same person for weeks had been driving down one of the side roads at 90 mile an hour, and causing havoc, and they were afraid their kids to be out. So it's worked real well. I think they're looking at trying to do something tax-based at some point just to kind of keep that. It's nice because it's flexible, because we just basically say if we don't have the resources to put to it for that week or that shift, we just don't do it. Or if they get to the point where like, okay, we're low on funds, or we don't want to, they can say back off for a day or two. So it's been real flexible, but there's not a lot that goes on up there. But the golf carts that are on the roads causing havoc, or the kids, or the loud music, or sometimes a little more serious, it's been pretty productive. So yeah.
Any other questions? Trustee Bills?
Sheriff, going back to the juvenile offenders, there was maybe some talk I heard at the commission meeting that maybe the old jail might be used for juvie. Is that right?
So there's been some talk. Of course, the facility's not functional for what we're using it for anymore. There is maybe a third of the jail that could be looked at. We do have a partner in our community that says, hey, we're interested in maybe working with you because they're having some issues too. My initial thought, we'd have to do a study and all that stuff. My initial thought would be the outer ring of the old building, which was built in the late 80s, maybe could be renovated for 15 or 20 beds. We'd never be able to use it for what it is. But it's got the kitchen, it's got the security systems into it. It's all built for it, so that might be an option. Originally, we were going to tear it down, but then the USDA dollars don't work within the city of Mount Pleasant. So we're like, well, that's $3 million. We can't. So we'll just take that off, and we're going to continue to use it for the pass-through to the tunnel to the courts and the security bays. I have to have a constitutional office at the county seat, so my office will stay. So there's some value there. I think our facilities maintenance folks are looking. They're in the basement of the county building, so they might be able to work part of that, building into to storage, or maybe have some stuff there. So there might be some use for it. It's just can't be used to the percentage and the degree we're using it for now, and maybe it can't be used at all. I don't know until we do the studies, but we're at least 24 months out before we can really start to put some thought or into that. I'm kind of hoping they don't really want to do that before the other piece is done, because I'd like to concentrate on that, but we'll see how it goes. But so there, and the county spends a lot of money on juvenile housing. We're sending juveniles when we can find bed spaces to Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana. We're transporting them out of state because there's nothing in the state. So that chunk of dollars might stay local here, and we can do our own thing, and then maybe have some beds for rent or something or whatever. But just trying to think out of the box and how to generate revenue and save revenue. So those are kind of things that we were looking at. But it's interesting because when we were looking at the 85 edition and stuff, and just kind of thinking this through, we pulled up some stats, and there was, any guess how many deputies we had in 1985? 14.
14.
Same as we have in 2022.
Oh my God.
So that tells you, So thank God for technology, because that's the only way we've been able to probably keep up. So and it's I had a CMU student here a while back ask me, like, she'd call me, it was one of the reporter from their stuff, and said, well, everybody keeps talking about crime increase, but when you look at the FBI national stats, it shows it's declined. And I said, yeah, because they're 2 years behind. I said, you wait until it catches up. I said, you're going to see a big increase. But I also know there's some big cities that aren't really reporting correctly either, and the FBI is having some issues with that. So we'll see how that all plays out. But we certainly know that we've got more victims in our community and more crime just for what we're doing. So when we're writing 75 incident reports every 7 days, we know we're up. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Really appreciate you coming in.
yeah, thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that finishes presentations. Item 5 on the agenda. We have no public hearings tonight. That brings us to item 7 on the agenda, public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on the agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. If you're joining us remotely,
I don't have anyone online.
okay, so no one's online, so I'm not going to give those instructions at this point. With that, we will open up public comment at 7:27 p.m. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public comment at 7:27 p.m. No closed session being proposed that I'm aware of. So that moves us to item 9 on the agenda, report boards and comments. Just regarding boards and commissions, I just want to point out a few items. As you all know, we had this in a previous meeting, I believe a month ago. ZBA appointments, we're going to need to make sure we address that staggering issue, because all those seats are currently coming due at basically the end of the year. I did notice the Aquatic Authority has one seat opening up at year end for Union Township appointment, that is. EDA has one seat in January that is up, and at this point I do know that that member has reapplied. I don't know if others have applied, but we have one seat coming due soon. Board of Review, I see one of our members here. Just a reminder, all those come due at the end of the year. It's a 2-year cycle, and reappoint that. So hopefully those that have served will continue to serve. I'm sorry. I'm looking at one of our members and hoping I'm sending a message. Also, Planning Commission has 3 coming due in February. So I just want to make everybody aware that as you're out in the community and you're recruiting, keep those in mind. October monthly activity report, any comments on that? I just had one that I wanted to lift up. My favorite part, and I don't know why this is, but my favorite part in the activity report is the enforcement.
Yeah, mine too. I like
Is it? and it's not because we're enforcing the ordinances necessarily and coming down on people, but very often there's you can tell there's a backstory to these, where the staff works with those that are causing the infraction, and they try to resolve the issue amicably, and so that's always nice to see too.
I like to see a lot of them are closed.
Yes. You enjoyed that too, huh?
Yeah, I
Yes.
do. I really get into that one
Yeah,
for some reason. I'll
that one
try
I
to buy
paid-
the places and I'll look at them.
Any other comments on that? All right, moving on, that takes us to Planning Commission, EDA sidewalks and ZBA updates by our Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Nanny. You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. We'll start tonight with our Sidewalks and Pathways Prioritization Committee. Easy item on that. They have their last quarterly meeting of the year tomorrow evening in this room. They'll be focusing more on kind of long-term priorities as part of that agenda. In terms of our other boards, our EDA board met October 18th. They had a busy meeting. They took a number of actions. They reviewed the budget amendment number 2 for the current fiscal year, and they did adopt that budget amendment as presented, and they also recommended it to the Board of Trustees for final approval. Following that, they looked ahead at fiscal year 2023. They reviewed the recommended budget for next year for the 2 DDA districts, and also adopted both of those budgets as presented and forwarded those with recommendations to the board for final approval. The third item on their list was in relation to our new sidewalks in the West EDA district. Of course, the East EDA, Doug Small Engine Repair, provides sidewalk snow plowing services in the winter along Pickard Road. So we asked them if they would be interested in extending their services to cover the new sidewalks in the West EDA district. They provided a cost proposal to do that, and the EDA board reviewed that, and they did in fact accept that proposal. So they'll be providing those same services on our new sidewalks in the West EDA district on Remus Road and also here on Lincoln Road. The last item on their list was related to meetings. We learned last month that there was a problem being able to have a quorum for their regular November meeting date. So they did, at their October meeting, they did make a motion, adopted motion to change their regular meeting date for November to the end of the month, November 29th. So moving it forward 2 more weeks. They also chose at the same time to cancel their December meeting. The item that's usually on our December meeting is the Festival of Banners. That's usually only item on that December action where they review and approve the annual participation in the Festival of Banners. We were able to move that up to that November 29th meeting, and so they decided to cancel the December meeting, which falls just before Christmas. So that was the full scope of the EDA board. Plan Commission also met on the 18th. They had a fairly busy agenda. We had one item that was kind of a deja vu moment. Sam's Club had their filling station on the agenda. If you may recall, Sam's Club has been wanting to build a filling station on their property for quite some time. They received a special use permit back in 2005. They didn't take action at that time to build anything. In late 2020, they came in with a plan. In 2021, that plan was approved through site plan approval. It happens to include new sidewalks along both the Walmart and the Sam's Club frontage of Encore Boulevard, kind of finishing up that sidewalk through there and connecting into Walmart and Sam's Club. Unfortunately, they ran into a problem with an easement. There's some odd property lines in the south end of their property, and what they thought was going to be a very quick process in 2021 turned into almost a year-long process to resolve that paperwork with the adjoining property owner. So by the time they've completed that, their state permit for the underground fuel tanks had expired. They did not keep it up for some reason. And unfortunately for them, in June, June 30th, just a few days before they were going to come back and update their or get their building permit for their project, the state of Michigan, new law in the state of Michigan went into effect that changed the rules for underground storage tanks and the separation distance from those tanks to municipal wells. The old rules allowed, there was a standard of 2,000 foot separation, but the old rules allowed essentially a variance process that if they provide extra pollution prevention, double or triple wall tanks, that sort of thing, that they could be closer in certain circumstances. All of those variance elements went out of the law with this change that went into effect at the end of June. And suddenly they found themselves with a plan that had fuel tanks 1,500 feet from our municipal wells and no longer allowed to be there. So they had to go through a process to update that, find a new location. Fortunately, they were able to find a new location on the Sam's Club property, basically adjacent to the filling station site. And so that's what was on the agenda for the Planning Commission, was reviewing that amendment to the final site plan, which was approved. We have just a couple of housekeeping details on that, but looking forward to seeing that project get started with the new year. The other item was the updated final site plan for the Mid-Michigan College athletic fields, athletic complex. That project did receive final site plan approval. Everything was in order. All the outside agency approvals were in place. So it went through and is now in the hands of our building official for a building permit. The last item on the Plan Commission's agenda was a set of proposed zoning ordinance amendments. As you recall, last November, this board adopted a set of what we call punch list amendments. As we continue to work with our new ordinance, we identified some other items that felt needed to be adjusted. In addition, we've had some state law changes that required us to act, and in a couple of cases either alter what our current requirements for, in this case, family and group daycare homes, and in another case to add a new use in, which is a residential treatment facility, where a state law blew through the legislature. I've not seen many go through faster, that requires the township to allow for residential treatment facilities up to 10 people, and these are primarily aimed at children, as essentially a residential use of property. We can't really treat it any different than we would treat a single-family home. So that's something that's in this set of amendments. Planning Commission reviewed those. They're going to continue that review and discussion at their next meeting. Related to the Planning Commission, I just want to mention, I think there's been some questions about some of our development projects. I just took a quick look, and I just want to mention on the commercial side, just to give you an idea of what over the past year, we've had 5 significant commercial projects that have gone through the approval process and they've completed construction and they're open. In addition to that, we have 3 more, including the Isabel Citizens for Health facility that are currently under construction. Another one of those is the Summerhill Village Mobile Home Park. It's an ongoing project. The commercial side of it is their clubhouse and office that they've rebuilt completely. They're essentially completely rebuilding that facility. It's really kind of state-of-the-art residential development now, and so it's a nice project. But the clubhouse essentially it's almost done. There are a few details left to do, but it's very close. In addition to those, we have 8 others that have completed the approval process in terms of site plan approval and are currently at some point related to building permits. In some cases, a building permit's been issued because construction has started. In other cases, this includes the jail project, they've received all their planning commission approvals and are simply waiting for a building permit application. So we have 8 of those that are in the process right now. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So if I can just comment on EDA briefly, I'd like to point out that November 15th meeting that the EDA postponed. You gotta understand that's Michigan holiday, right? Opening day, which is why the quorum issue came up. But the other thing I wanted to lift up regarding the EDA budget, and this is probably because it's near and dear to me, is as you remember with the new EDA plan, we extended some boundaries on the east side, East EDA. And that included, over by Airport Road, and the purpose of that is that's zone industrial there, but the infrastructure is terrible. It's dirt roads that are in poor shape. And so part of the budget that was approved by the EDA and will come to us was some monies for improvement in that area, which I'm excited to see. Did I get that right?
You did, yeah.
Odd question for you. And we had a conversation recently after our last EDA meeting with one of our residents and business owners about tiny homes. Is that anything that the Planning Commission is looking at for future? Because as it stands now, I think there is no, it's not allowed currently by our ordinance.
Right, tiny homes, there's various definitions for that, but you can think of homes in the, let's call it the 100 to about 400 square foot range. Some are a little bigger, sometimes they're even a little smaller. Often they're on wheels, on a trailer or otherwise, but not always. And right now, our ordinance does not have any option for those to be developed in the township, with one exception, and that is the plan unit development process. If somebody wanted to do some kind of a tiny home development, they could essentially propose the idea through that plan unit development option. That's it's an option that can be reviewed and considered. There's no requirement that it be approved, but they could at least propose the idea through that. The Plan Commission does not have this on the radar right now, but this is something that housing in general and the variety of housing types and such are something that is certainly going to be part of conversation as we begin to look at the master plan. Our township master plan was adopted in 2018. The State Planning Act requires the Planning Commission to review that document at least every 5 years and consider whether there's a need to update it. They don't have to update it. They can review it, and basically they have to take an action after reviewing the document. That action can be, we love it, we think it's great, and close the book, essentially, and say we're good for another 5 years. Or they can take an action and say we believe that there's reason to update this document, whatever those reasons might be, and then that can start the process to look at it. There is some money that you'll be seeing in the recommended budget for a potential master plan update, but the Plan Commission will be looking at this topic basically early in the new year. And housing is certainly a key issue. It's a key issue statewide. It's interesting. Housing is almost turned upside down. There was a time not too long ago when there was a feeling that there was too much being developed, a sprawl. We're talking about sprawl development, and now the conversation is entirely 100 degrees the other way. That we need more housing. We need more variety of housing, more housing types in the community, and so that certainly will be a topic, and tiny homes are a part of it. That will be coming up as part of that master plan review.
And just for clarity, I wasn't suggesting a support or opposition to tiny homes. It was just, I found our conversation that we had interesting, and I thought it'd be good for the Board of Trustees to hear some of that, so that, because there has
I
been
agree.
proposed that in our community as a potential option at least. Yeah, I didn't mean it as expressing the stance. Leave that up to the Planning Commission. Any other questions for our director? Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Think,
All right, that brings us to board member reports. We'll start over on my left. Trustee Bills.
I attended the Isabella County Board of Commissioners meeting on October 18th. And just to add to what I said before about them doing their retrofit for their lights, Phil Schumacher also applied for and got a $3,000 credit from consumers for that as well. So, I mean, totally, totally fabulous idea. I think we should do it here. Anyway, also in the meeting, the county stated that they had asked the census to look for an adjustment for CMU students, but they did not get that. So, the jail sheriff already said that the loan was, that the county approved, getting the loan. And the beds are gonna decrease in the facility from 290 to 187 now. So that's still way more than we project, that they project that they will need in the near term future, but not 290. So they're going to break ground spring of 2023, and they also said they're going to spend $8 million of their ARPA funds to pay down their deficit. I think it's a deficit balance for their MERS account, which is their employee benefit type fund, which is going to actually save them $11 million over 10 years. So that's good. And then another thing is that the county recreational reservation site is going to be a new vendor again, and it's going to look a lot like the state of Michigan DNR reservation site, which is really cool. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen that, and it's state of the art. So they're going to have that starting in 2023 as well. That's all I have.
Trustee Therian?
I have no comment.
Clerk Cody?
Just gonna do a election report. So out of the 8,400 voters, we have 1,339 ballots out and 715 that have been returned. So
That
pretty
seems
good so
higher
far.
than the national average.
Hmm?
I said that seems higher than the national average. I think the national average is about 12% now.
No,
Yeah.
pretty high.
Trustee Hout?
We had a road commission meeting on October 13th. Most of their salt at that time had been in for winter projects. It sounds like this winter is going to be a bad winter from what they said, from what the predictions they're seeing. So work is continuing on Mission Road. I don't know if any of you guys have been on Mission Road, but it's completed now in Isabella or in Union Township. Both sides of, like, from the roundabout to Baseline Road is completed. And south from the bridge or the overpass by Deerfield Road to Millbrook Road is completed. They received one of their new trucks that they've been waiting to get in. That's something I found out that was pretty interesting. We have 120 bridges in this county. And I mean, bridges, I can't remember how much they're cost. Well, it just depends how big the bridge is. But some of those bridges are upwards of $3 million to replace. They ordered a new loader to load salt and stuff like that for trucks. $355,000 that they paid for that, but it won't be delivered until probably 2024. But they had to order it now, because if they don't order it now, it won't be available for next year.
Kind of like our vac truck.
Right, yeah. I was down at Broomfield and Lincoln today. I tried to call Tony. I wasn't able to get in touch with him, but I was able to get in touch with Alex Fuller. He's McGurk's engineer, and he said that it's ready to pave. They were hoping to pave on Monday, but now with the weather and everything, they're not going to probably be able to get to it till midweek, depending on how things dry out. And things are having a hard time driving out because people keep driving down the road. I was out there for probably 10, 15 minutes today. I called Mark, and I told Mark, I said, there has to be 15 cars that have passed me. You know, and they just drive right through, and one lady got down in close to the curb. You know, the curb and gutter's all poured. It's beautiful. I've got all kinds of pictures if anybody wants to look. And it's really nice. But anyways, then they get close to the curb. Well, then there's a rut. So now all the water's gonna fill in there, so now they'll have to go back and grade it again. And their problem is people will not stay off the road. And that's, it's just a problem. And I know that there have been police officers out there ticketing people, and I think that people need to understand, you're gonna get ticketed if they catch you out there. Another thing I was talking to Mark about that I think is pretty cool is how they cut the corners back. That northeast corner, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, now it's just cut down the hill, the southwest corner's cut back. It's just gonna make things a lot more visible. It's really, the pictures are really good. I mean, it's gonna be a good project. Then there's another road commission meeting tomorrow that I'll go to. I went to, last Wednesday night, I went to Council of Governments meeting, and it was pretty much a lot of the stuff they had a road commission update. That's where I found out we have 120 bridges in the county. So there was a road commission update at that, and then they also talked about a new tax mandate from the state where you have to be able, any citizen can call in and get their property ID card. We are already, I didn't understand the whole thing, Mark. It was mainly the clerks talking about it, or the treasurers and the assessors talking about the supervisors. The county's gonna provide a service now where if you're like last night I went to the Fremont Township meeting. They don't have a website. I mean, we have a website here, so if people want their tax ID number and everything, they can just come get on our website and get it. So they weren't really talking like, about us, but like, say for instance, if Fremont Township wanted to do it, it would cost them $1,500, and they might get one request a year. They were talking how, like, Denver Township, their supervisor is the guy that runs the MTA meetings, John Pediak. John said they've had maybe 2 or 3 a year. Well, it costs them $1,500. So now the county's gonna pool everybody together, and you'll just be able to get all that information from the county. So that'll save the townships money. So,
I have a question though.
yeah,
Why does it cost $1,500? Who are they paying that to?
I don't, BSNA, I think.
Yeah.
OMG.
Yeah, and it's like, and it, like they said, the John Pediak from Denver Township, he said, if you get 2 a year, said it's just unbelievable.
Can't you just laminate one with their number on it?
I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. So the county's gonna take care of it, and they're gonna get in touch with all the township supervisors and go from there.
You
Or
can-
all the county township supervisors, I'm sorry.
And as I understand it, you can go to your treasurer or assessing department, wherever it's at, and request like a physical, look at the card, your property card. But I think what you're referring to is electronic access, so
Yeah.
you can just pull it up
I
online,
should have said
right?
electronic access, yes, I'm sorry.
Just for clarity, right? I mean, there is the other option, in person, looking at your card. And we use, I believe BSNA is how we
Plus,
make
it's
that
on
available.
it's on your mortgage doc. Don't you have that? And it's also on your tax
Well,
Text,
bill
but-
every twice a year.
Yeah, but what's not on there is maybe they're making assumptions about your property, like let's say you have a sunroom and your assessor is making the assumption that that is a 4-season room rather than a 1-season room. And so that's the kind of stuff that you see on those cards that you can clarify with the assessor to say this is a better way to properly assess my property.
All right, thanks. That helps.
I don't have 3 bathrooms, I only have 2, right?
and there were 4 assessors there the other night. So, and that she was pretty much talking was the assessors that were there were pretty much explaining everything, and most of us in the room were like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but.
You
I'm
good?
done.
I just, one comment too on the Lincoln Broomfield. I went down there on Sunday and just kind of scoped out. I saw the curbs. What really surprised me, and I guess I knew this was happening, but if in the past, if you were coming from the south, say on Lincoln, you go down the steep hill to get to that
it's all
corner,
raised up now.
and they've raised up the whole intersection, and they've cut down the top of that hill, and it is a much safer environment. The water runoff's have to slow
Oh,
down tremendously, I would
amazing.
think.
That's awesome.
It looks very different.
Well, pictures I had taken 2 weeks ago from the catch basin right in the middle of the intersection, it was probably down 1.5 feet, and they've built that all up since. And they've got all crushed concrete, or all crushed asphalt out there. It's almost like driving down a paved road right now. I didn't drive down the road. I stopped in front of Jeff Brown's house.
That's what I did.
And got out and walked, and I walked up and down, and had, like I said, many cars, and it's like, you know, you're walking down the side of the road, and it's almost like I gotta get out of the way because there's cars coming, and a couple of them were kind of rude. But
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, living there, I see that traffic continually. So, thanks for the
I got-
report.
one guy I saw, I knew the guy. He's a contractor, and I said, "Where do you think you're going?" He said, "Oh, just going down the road. I'm gonna turn left on Lincoln Road up here." I said, "Well, the road's closed." He goes, "Well, don't tell anybody, but it's open." And I said, "Well, I see that it's open, but we're not supposed to be going down it." Whatever. So then he did. He turned around and went. He goes, "Well, how am I supposed to get back over on Lincoln Road, North Lincoln?"
Go
I said,
around.
"Follow the detour." I said, "Follow me. That's the way I'm going right now." So, anyways.
So
you
I had an anecdote from the get together today. So I was introducing myself to one lady. I won't mention any names. She lives in she's like, Union Township. I hate those guys. And I said, "What do you hate about us?" And she goes, "Well, if I send my taxes in too early, I get a refund sent back to me." And she said, "And then I sent my check. I had my bank pay my bill, and then I got another tax bill, but I didn't look at it. And then I was delinquent because they changed my taxes in the middle of the tax season." And I'm like, "Well, maybe you should have looked at your bill." But anyway, she was irritated. But I said, "I've never seen a refund. I pay my taxes almost literally the day after I get my bill, and I've never had a refund sent back to me. They take my money readily." That's all.
Yeah, so with that, I don't have a lot to report. We talked about the EDA already. We did have the leadership meeting today. That was really good conversation for about 2 hours. Got to know some leaders in our community that I hadn't had a relationship with prior, and that was really nice. So
Valuable.
it was a very, very good conversation. All right, that wraps up item 9 on our agenda. Moving to item 10, consent agenda. Be happy to entertain any motions regarding the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Bills, support by Hauk. At this point, I believe warrants were not able to be reviewed.
Correct. I will review the warrants after the meeting.
So I believe what we've done in the past is,
We've approved it.
We've
and
approved it
If there's any
pending-
problem, then they come back and,
yeah, so that puts it on you to alert, but that way those can be paid fairly promptly. My understanding is, Trustee Therian, you said tomorrow you'd be able to get to that, right? So,
Yeah, I'll do it
Yeah.
after the meeting and then I'll just report to Tara.
okay. So the motion was to approve the consent agenda. May I make a suggestion that we add into that pending report on
Pending
the-
warrant approval
Yeah.
by Trustee Thering.
I agree.
Any other discussion on item 10? All right, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda pending final approval by Trustee Thering regarding the warrants. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 11 on the agenda. As long as I'm keeping track properly. New business, item A. This is introduction and first reading of cross-connection ordinance update. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. There's some paperwork that begins on page 22 of your agenda packet. We're asking you tonight to consider conducting a first reading and introduction for proposed cross-connection ordinance update number 2022-06. It's a relatively minor update to the ordinance. We had update some language as it relates to testing, some name changes due to some state agency name changes. You may recall that one of the many items that we had contracted HydroCorp to do, because they help us with the cross-connection program that we've been doing here locally since about 1995. Part of their agreement with us is to review that ordinance, and they suggested a couple changes, again, mostly in the title and referencing that how we do the testing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we'll be back in front of you again at your next meeting, assuming you conduct a first reading tonight.
I just had one question, and it's not relevant to my support or not of this, but more curiosity. Michigan Department of Public Health was named Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Do you know if that's just adding responsibility to that department or a combination of a couple departments into one? Curiosity.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, thanks.
I move to introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed cross-connection ordinance update number 2022-06.
Support.
Go ahead.
Motion by Bill, support by Cody. Discussion?
This seems to be straightforward to me.
The process for HydroCorp to come in is that hasn't changed.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The only other thing I had, the only change other than the department name is the testing. I mean, I'm assuming we were probably doing that largely anyways, weren't we?
We are. The testing rules, as required by the state, changed a while ago. We've been following those. We're kind of circling back, if you will, and updating our ordinance.
Any other discussion? Motion to approve the introduction and first reading of the cross-connection ordinance update. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion for introduction and first reading passes unanimously. That brings us to item B on our agenda. Certifying delinquent special assessments from the McGurk subdivision in Carriage Hill Estates. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. And again, on page 29 of your packet, the paperwork starts. The board approved a couple road paving special assessments in the last couple of years. One in what we refer to as the McGurk subdivision. That was 2021, I believe. And then more earlier this year, the Carriage Lane special assessment. And as part of that process, there's a warrant that's delivered from the clerk after board action to the treasurer, and that's the document that commands the treasurer to collect the special assessments. And as part of that, and as outlined in the Public Act 188, there's a process that we have to go through to certify delinquencies so that we can then place them on the winter tax bill as I refer to it as a delinquent collection mechanism. 2 weeks ago, the treasurer, as required, provided you all a report. These were the list of the delinquencies at that time. And then tonight, you're being asked to certify the delinquencies that are in your packet. And then that will allow administratively the treasurer to place that charge on the winter tax bill. And if it remains unpaid, that winter tax bill gets turned over to the county treasurer. we would get payment through their delinquent tax fund, and life goes on, and at that point, the county treasurer's trying to collect those things. So this is as much of anything an accounts receivable collection process. Be happy to answer any questions.
Trustee Bills?
So I believe I recall that this is not a lien at all, right, on the property? These don't constitute a lien on the property, is that correct?
When the special assessment was approved, there effectively became a lien on the property for
okay.
the special
I
assessment.
got you. Okay, thank you so much.
I'll make a motion to certify delinquent special assessments from both the McGurk subdivision and Carriage Hill Estate special assessment rolls in order to place said delinquencies on the winter tax bill as allowed under the State of Michigan Public Act 188 of 1954.
Support.
Motion by Hauk, support by Cody. More discussion?
What's a roll call?
You like roll call?
I would.
Okay. Question, when I had a special assessment in my neighborhood for road, I couldn't tell you which year it was. But I believe in that case, the township automatically just put it on our winter taxes. Is that, would that be something that would be easier? I remember us approving, saying, I think it was September 1st was the deadline to pay, if my memory serves me right.
Well, there may be two things going on. That, in the case of these two special assessments, we're sending out separate special assessment bills.
Right.
We did that as soon as you approved the
Right.
bill, and it was due September 1 of the particular year. There is also special assessments that sometime appear on the winter tax bill that takes the place of a separate bill. And so what you may be referring to is the bill, the first bill, if you will, being on your winter tax bill. I'm not sure, I'm not
Yeah,
familiar
for
with
the
property.
roads, right.
For the roads.
Then it remained on there
And it
each year for 5 years or whatever. it
Remained
was,
on
right?
there. But that was not put on there as a delinquent collection
Correct.
mechanism. It was put on there as a convenience for sending out a bill, in place of sending out a separate bill.
Yeah, I guess what I was asking is, I don't know if that might be a more convenient process for our residents when they do a special assessment district. If that might be better, save the township some of the headache of sending out special bills and having to follow up.
It may, I think sending out a separate bill, keeping it distinct from the tax bill until you're allowed to place it on the tax bill. One, it makes it a little cleaner for us to collect it as delinquent and have the special assessment treated the same way a real property tax, because the special assessment is not technically a tax.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I was surprised to see the especially Carriage Hill, because
99% of.
all of them agreed to do it. I know over maybe at McGurk, there were one or two people that weren't happy about it, but there was I thought there was 100% participation.
I think there was one property that
Oh,
didn't sign on.
We did, when the listing came to the board 2 weeks ago, we'd sent out notices to all those folks, and a couple of them have paid since then, and they are not on this list now. And we will continue to monitor the payments, I should have said this, so that if any payments come in before we go through the administrative process, those will be removed as well. And why people may not pay a bill, who knows?
I had the same thoughts, though.
I don't get
By the
involved.
way, that
I don't
looks
concern
good.
myself with that.
by the way, Carriage Hill does look good. I mean, you know, it's kind of shoulders and everything, it does, it's, you know. I see there's a couple new houses going up over there, or one new house, and
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Motion is to certify the delinquent special assessment districts from McGurk subdivision and Carriage Hill Estates. Would you do a roll call, please? Clerk Cody?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yes.
Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 11C on our agenda, computer server purchase request. Again, Manager's Tool Dryer, would you like to introduce this?
Page 33 in your agenda packet, we're asking the board to consider the approval of the purchase of 2 servers and the associated, what I refer to as ancillary equipment, in the total amount of $54,793.96. The township currently has 2 servers, one that we use daily, routinely, the other serves as a backup in case something were to happen to the first server. This recommendation involves purchasing 2 new servers, taking one of our existing servers to act in a backup capacity. So from an operational perspective, we'd be able to use 2 servers instead of 1. And that's going to help with some production efficiencies, response times back to the desktops and that kind of thing. These servers, I think, are 5 to 7 years old, so they're getting a little long in the tooth in terms of this electronic equipment. We're also, as part of this action, right now the servers are located in Township Hall in the Isabella Administration Building, and we're recommending that we start hosting, or I guess locating those, at CMS's data center. That is, we'll rent some space on one of their racks, and that will significantly improve our security and some redundancy factors that come with this equipment. You know, we have them sitting in our basement, and our basement floods, and there's, you know, significantly more fire protection over at the data center and that kind of thing. In this day and age, the computers and servers, they may as well be like plow trucks. You know, if they're not working, we're not working. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Kim Smith is here also, that when we met with CMS and reviewed this in some detail.
Questions? Trustee Bills?
This is a pretty large purchase. I was just wondering if we bid this out at all. I know that CMS is our, you know, internet provider and whatnot, and wireless, but it's a large purchase.
CMS is our network administrator,
Yeah.
essentially our contracted IT department. And this service, these servers are designed to work with the rest of our equipment. I don't know that we bid them out, but we would be bidding out the same described product.
Right. Don't we have to bid things out?
It depends, because we have preferred vendors identified for certain things, and
They're
depends on the policy.
$25,000 apiece,
Yeah, I see that.
and that includes all the ancillary equipment as well.
I agree, it's a pretty penny. I get that.
Well, if it was my business, I would be looking at a few quotes. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I assume, and maybe I didn't see it here, but we run a lot of virtual boxes on this, right? So I assume in that case, we're just going to be transferring those virtual boxes, therefore licenses and everything will transfer, right? There's no software really here.
Right, what is it,
We currently have
15,
7 virtual
seven
servers.
virtuals, and we'll be going up to 15
And we'll be
or
going up to
something
15,
like that.
yes. And the one that we're keeping and using as a backup will actually replace it, probably Isabella, to put it in a different location so that if there is a failure or if there is a problem at the data center,
Right.
then that server will be available outside of that.
Is that rack mounts that we have there now, or are they?
Yeah, we have rack
Oh,
mounts
we do,
there.
okay, because that was one of my questions. I saw the notes on the co-location. By the way, my company server's co-located there as well. But I was curious about that. I thought, I don't even know if we have a rack mount there, but we do.
One thing that, if I may, one thing that is very important about the change in these servers from what we have now is the ability for the servers to switch over. Right now, that has to be done manually. If our server goes down, let's say the server goes down, our main server is at Isabella, that server goes down, it manually has to be switched over. These will give us and what that affects primarily is the controls and the alarming systems that we have on there for our water and sewer systems. So we then get a alarm on our phone at night during the day that says your server is down. We get it, CMS gets it. Then CMS has to manually switch over to the other server. All the data is there, but there's some time there. And there's been some bugs, but those have been worked out. This will give us the ability to eliminate that. You'll go, when that server goes down, and it happens quite often actually, for whatever reason, their computers, they do that. It will automatically switch over to the other one. And all of that data is still there. So we won't have the downtime with the alarms. We've had it happen more frequently because the servers are getting quite old. 2016 is when those were put in. So this will give us that ability. That's one thing when we talked to CMS that we wanted to make sure we were able to do. That gives us more security and more reliability in those two systems for alarming and controls.
So with the manual server switch, that includes overtime too then, correct?
What do you mean?
That we pay them to go in and manually switch it?
Well, most of that's done remotely.
Oh, they do it remotely,
Yeah.
okay.
There are occasions when they have to come in, like we've had to meet them at Isabella to let them in to that, to the room so that they could get in and do something, but most of the time they can do it remotely. But there's always some downtime.
I'm a little too close to this kind of stuff sometimes, and so I was trying to check myself that I don't overlook at this, but I do have one question. So regarding the specs, regarding looks like there's OS drives in there that are solid state, and then 3.84 terabytes that are solid states. I'm assuming that's probably a RAID. Does that make sense? And I'm assuming that CMS talked over with you what your current data requirements are, and that's enough for
Yeah,
what we need.
We've actually met with them several times before they came to us with this quote, talked to them about what we wanted to achieve as far as our alarming and stuff, and then we also talked about, they know what kind of data we're storing, they know what our needs are, and they've, this is the spec they came up with, because they're very familiar with our systems and what our needs are for BSNA, for our opto equipment, which has to do with the water and sewer side.
The GIS.
For our GIS, that's a huge animal
Yeah.
now. We have a huge GIS system. So that was all, yes, that was all discussed.
I kind of figured it was, but I was just making sure that was due diligence was done, and I assumed CMS would look at that too. Other questions, comments?
It says it's a rate on the next line.
It does, I missed that. Oh, yeah. Until virtual rate on CPU. Oh, that's on the, through the CPU. RAID is just, if you're not aware, is basically a redundancy in drives. So if a drive goes down, the other one picks up, or there's different forms of RAID, but that's essentially what that is, a redundancy mechanism.
Excellent.
So I'm assuming that if we were to open this up for other bids, and I'm assuming there'd be a lot more labor involved. Because I see right here that, you know, on item 6, 7, looks like they, you know, we've got their labor broken out, how much time it would take to do all this. But it sounds to me like if we were to go with someone else, it would take a lot more labor to switch over to their system.
I would assume.
I'm not,
that-
I mean, put it this way, as far as computers go, I'm working up at Faust Hall. There's a room probably 4 times the size of this that's got servers in it that are as big as a car, but they're real old. And you know, to me, it, you know, looks like a steamroller would look good in there, rolled right over 'em. But anyways, go ahead, I'm sorry. But
I assume there would be, because not only would we have to bring another provider up to speed on what our requirements are and what our system needs are, we'd have to pay CMS to help us do that because they're our IT support. So we'd be paying CMS to tell somebody else what we need, which they've already done for us as part of our contract that we have with them. So, yeah, that would be redundant. We would be, you know.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 servers and ancillary equipment in the amount of $54,793.96 and approve a monthly lease payment of $500 to locate the servers at CMS's data center facility.
Support.
Motion by Hout, support by Therian. Further discussion?
You can do roll call again if you want.
Okay.
Might as well.
I'm just making sure we're all good.
Yeah.
Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion to approve the request for computer server purchase. Roll call vote. Clerk Cody, would you ask our board?
Supervisor Monkey,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
If I counted that right, motion passed unanimously. With that, that moves us to item 11D on our agenda, Policy Governance 2.5, Financial Condition and Activities. Manager Steeldryer?
Thank you. And the month of October is when the board reviews the administration's compliance with Policy 2.5, which is titled Financial Condition and Activities. This is a quarterly review. The policy as written is quite lengthy. I'm not going to go through all of it. At its highest level, it reads, with respect to the actual ongoing financial condition and activities, the township management team shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or a material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in the ends policies. And then there's about 10 further limitations on what the administration can do. For instance, it speaks to a requirement to settle payroll and other debts in a timely manner as one of the sub-policies. I'm not going to go through all that, but looked at in its entirety, my interpretation of that is that there will be no expenditures made or incurred that will exceed the expenditures that you all have approved a budget for, unless it's in an emergency purchase as outlined in another one of your policies, 2.5.6, that the manager shall not make a single purchase or commitment unless it falls under that policy of greater than $10,000, or inform the board in a timely manner if there is such an emergency need. Tax payments and all to other governmental entities, where we act as agent for a lot of taxing jurisdictions in the township. We collect their taxes. We have to remit those receipts back to them on a biweekly basis, and that accounts payable are processed timely for the board to approve and review, so that the vendors are paid timely. I think that's a reasonable interpretation of this policy. When the budget's approved by the board, the way Union Township's set up, is then left to the management team to operate within those guidelines that the board has established through its governance policy. We do have a couple reports attached that provide data. There were no expenditures made that do not support your global end policies, either directly or indirectly. We incurred no new debts in the third quarter of 2022. All payroll taxes and benefit payments were paid on schedule and timely. We're not allowed to purchase any real property without coming to the board first. There was none of that. We do have a reasonable cash flow situation, so we don't need to worry ourselves about trying to balance the income and the outflow from a cash flow perspective. So with all that said, it's my opinion that we're in compliance with the policy. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Seeing none? All right, well, let me ask you, the board, bear with me. There's a lot of data in this one.
Page 50.
54.
I'm getting there, thank you.
Sorry.
Did we get this when it was submitted to us on time?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes? Interpretation, very important to look at. Did you agree with the manager's interpretation? Because that's
Yes.
how he's going to
Yes.
execute this.
Yes.
Do you believe that there is, the interpretation was justified or proof was available to explain why the interpretation is reasonable?
Yep.
Yes.
I do.
Do you feel that the interpretation addressed all aspects of the policy?
Yes.
And all the data that was in front of us, does that show compliance with the manager's interpretation?
Yes.
Yes.
You seen anything that we need to address to clarify language, expand on, remove? Now's the time if we want to make changes to this section of the policy governance, good time to do it.
I'd like to make one comment, but it has nothing to do with this particular policy. This format here, when I was at my policy governance boot camp, some of the other people that were there said that their boards actually answer these questions before the meeting through a like a Survey Monkey type
Oh,
format.
Oh.
And I think that would be a lot more fun than reading all these questions all the time. Just a comment. Thanks a lot. Sorry about that.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
I like that suggestion.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we can't have discussion, but it speeds up that process. Because
Yes,
this is
sir.
something we do every month.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good idea.
All right, so we have no suggested changes, additions,
No.
removals, clarifications at this point. All right, so I believe the board is agreeing with our manager that we're in compliance. That brings us, unless there's objection, item 11E on our agenda, Policy Governance 4.3. This is aimed more at us. Delegation to the township manager and management team. Do you have anything you'd like to say to this?
Just that the paperwork and the policy language is on page 55 of your agenda packet. This basically has to do with how the board and the management team interact, and it starts to talk about where the various lines are between our areas of responsibility.
Any comments in general on the policy
Yeah,
itself?
I have one.
Okay.
So looking at 4.3.3, it's interesting to me that it says that as long as the township manager uses any reasonable interpretation, et cetera, township manager is authorized to make all decisions, take all actions and establish all practices and develop all activities with no modification to that. It just seems like that should say at the end, for administration of the township, rather than, just kind of a blanket, all decisions. I don't know, it just seems a little bit total, or something like that,
Yeah, all encompassing.
Yeah.
Encompassing rather than directing at the duties of the manager.
Yes, sir. That's the only thing I saw that was kind of striking.
Yeah, it might be helpful, from my perspective, to add 4.3.3 and develop, just at the end there, establish all practices and develop all activities towards the administration of the township. It kind of keeps it in the ball court of where the manager should be. Thoughts on this?
Nope.
Does the manager have any thoughts on it?
You don't sense a conflict, right?
No.
Understand that?
I don't.
Understand, yeah, I think, I kind of like that. It does clarify it. I think we understand that, but it does clarify the language. Do we need to vote on that kind of a suggested change, or are you comfortable just directing it and then
Just direct
have
it.
language brought back and we can just approve that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maybe even through consent agenda?
yeah.
that'd be great.
Would you be willing to, did you understand that comment well enough to?
Could you?
Yeah.
And we have.
Thank you. All right, so, thanks for that. So you didn't use SurveyMonkey for this, but does this board, feel that this board is in strict compliance with the policy as stated?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think we just kind of answered number one, but I'll ask again, is there any other processes the board, my apologies, I jumped the gun. Are there any processes that this board can do better, be better compliance? Not that we're failing.
I don't have anything.
I think I had one suggestion. Let's see if I can articulate it. No. Would you have a language suggestion that we just put through? Any items we need to learn or discuss in order to live by this better?
No.
Just as a reminder too, because this references management team, our clerk, our treasurer, and supervisor have been meeting on a regular basis with the manager just to kind of go through things. And it didn't work so well this week, but
Sorry.
because of various items. But I'm glad we're beginning that process of doing that over this last, what, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, something like that. All right. That finishes our new business. That brings us to extended public comment, restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:34 p.m. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Doug LaBelle II. I reside at 955 Meadowbrook Drive in Union Township. I currently serve as a member of the Union Township Planning Commission and the Union Township Board of Review. However, my comments tonight are as a resident of the township and not as a member of these boards. Over the past 9 months, I've spoken with quite a few residents, developers, hardworking people in the mid-Michigan area regarding economic development as well as their experiences within Union Township. I've asked them, how can we get more businesses to the area? How can we create more tax base? What can we do differently to make this happen? The common theme from almost every one of these individuals was too many challenges of developing within this township. What were these challenges, you may ask? Well, I don't have any personal experiences with our township process. However, some of these people do. Unfortunately, I am only able to share 2 of their comments with you tonight. However, they wish to remain anonymous. All of the other individuals I spoke with were not even willing to share their comments with me or let me share their comments with you for fear of backlash by the township. These people are afraid of the possible backlash they might receive in the future if they were to say something on record. I think that speaks volumes of the culture that's been created here at our township. That being said, I will do my best as a liaison for these people to summarize their feedback that I received from these individuals and then read the 2 anonymous comments to you. My research and these comments do not include the email you received from Brandon LaBelle on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. That is outside of the research that I have done. Some of the feedback I did receive includes the following. The water tap fees are too high compared to the surrounding municipalities. The permit fees are too high compared to the surrounding municipalities. The process here takes too long. It's hard to get answers when I call or email with questions. I am encouraging prospects to seek other municipalities to develop. Why would one develop here when the cost is 20% higher than surrounding municipalities? Feels like the staff thinks we are the enemy. One person even said, I'm helping businesses relocate because they are tired of dealing with township overreach. First quote I'd like to share with you from one person, again, who wishes to remain anonymous. I've lived and worked in this community for a long time, and most of the Union Township staff have been nice to work with up until the last 5 years. In my recent experiences, the new staff running our township have taken on an adversarial position when projects are proposed. Instead of being amenable and asking what can be done to assist in having the project come to fruition, they find ways to tell me no and add costs to my project. In my opinion, our township needs staff that are willing to invite projects and not deter projects. The second anonymous comment does not sugarcoat this particular person's feelings and may make some of you uncomfortable hearing. The township planning director has seemingly taken on an approach to deny first and hope no questions, that there are no one that questions it later. Comes off as having a very dramatic opposition to anything development related. It's as though he's personally opposed to the positive economic improvement to the community. In many cases, his adverse dialogue with applicants turns people off and they walk away from a project with the perception that Union Township is hostile towards development. Perception becomes reality as they share their experience with others, end quote. The feedback I'm sharing with you tonight ought to have the township asking themselves, is this what we really want to be? I certainly don't think so. However, I stood before the trustees about 5 years ago and mentioned that the city of Mount Pleasant had taken on this kind of approach. And Union Township had actually been benefiting from that. That we needed to steer clear of this approach. It's obvious we've fallen right in line with that same mentality, which is hindering development and driving out current businesses. If these comments accurately represent the direction the township wishes to continue going, then do nothing with this feedback tonight. If this feedback does not accurately represent the direction the township wishes to continue going, then the township will need to seriously consider some alternatives. And just one comment in regards to Mr. Nanny's comments about 8 pending projects. I think that's great. However, among the people that I spoke with, there's approximately 12 projects within the last 3 to 5 years that never even made it to the Planning Commission. Just information, again, these are not my words. I'm just the liaison from these people that have presented this stuff to me. So again, I'm trusting that the information they've given me is accurate. I've asked them multiple times that if it's accurate. I've asked them multiple times to put their name on it. This is the best I can do. So this is 9 months of research this year. So just thought that I'd like to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody
No, I don't.
virtually at this point? Seeing no one else coming forward for public comment or extended public comment, we'll close extended public comment at 8:39 PM. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda, manager's comments. Manager Stuhldreher.
Thank you, and a couple just brief comments. Our outdoor fitness, the components came in today that you all approved a while ago.
Wow.
They're
That's
being
fast.
stored in the green barn over there. There was several folks from all the departments helping get them out of the semi, and there they'll sit for the winter until we get to installing them next spring. Thanks for letting folks use some boxes, take up some of your space in the green barn. The leadership luncheon, as was mentioned today, was well attended and very enjoyable. And then if the board doesn't mind, and I can do this a couple different ways, I don't have to do it tonight, but I did send out very late in the afternoon the manager's recommended budget to you all. And it's about 2 weeks later than I would have liked, but be that as it may, I would be able to give you a very brief, high-level recap of that if you want to take the time tonight, and I could do it right now.
I would like to hear it.
Okay.
Seems like we have consensus.
And so I'm going to use a little bit of the new technology. And so the document that you received,
I'm going to the eye doctor tomorrow, but my God.
well, no, this
All right.
is,
You better
yeah,
get over
I
there.
can't
buddy.
say it either.
right. And I don't know how to make that full screen there, but
Your maximizer, I think, right?
Right above there.
At the top.
Oh.
No,
Well, that worked too.
that might even be better, but
Doesn't look as blurry.
Do you want me to turn the lights off a little bit? You might be able to see
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I could do that.
Oh, that's better.
It might be a little dark.
Oh, I can see it on both sides now. Jeez.
Well, maybe not all of them, so they can, cameras
Sorry.
can still pick
That's
where
as
you're
big as
going.
all right, well, we'll just go with this. The,
Plus and minus right here.
Yeah, he was using that,
Yeah. I can see that one over there good now.
but it doesn't give him a full screen unless you.
Oh, I
right?
see.
and you don't really need to read much of this. This is
Yeah.
just, you have an electronic document, it's a PDF file. There are bookmarks. Those are on the left. If you open up the bookmark pane, on the left side of the file, you'll be able to go to any of those funds very quickly, so you don't have to hunt through the whole document. The
Well, we can look at it on our own right here too, can't
That's nice.
we? Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that.
So if you wanted to go to the fire fund, you had some question about the fire fund, you just click that and it'll take you to the fire fund section, so you don't have to page through all the pages to get there. There's a recommendation transmittal memo at the front of the budget book that will go into some detail. I'll touch on a little bit of that in a moment. The funds that the board is being asked to pass budgets on are listed there: the general fund, the fire fund, special assessment funds, water and sewer, 2%, east and west DDA funds, similar to what you've approved in the past. As we look forward, you'll see the calendar there. By the end of 2022, December 31st, we need to have an adopted budget. So between now and then, there's a couple of technical things that we'll need to do. We need to publish a notice for a public hearing. The board will need to take action to set a date for the public hearing. All those are listed there. And then the public hearing will be held. That's scheduled for November 22nd. The budget adoption, we have one meeting, I believe it's one meeting in December. So at this point, we're targeting that meeting date, which is the 14th. That will also be the day you approve your calendar for next year. I'm going to jump to the back of the book now. When you get your physical book, all these bookmarks will exist in the form of tabs, and you'll see a tab that says Other Information, and that's where you'll start seeing the recommended fee schedule. You can look at those changes. That is also where I'm not sure how to page down. How do you page down to?
I think you'd have to hit 44 up there. I'm not sure with a
Take your
PDF.
finger and touch the screen and pull it up.
Because on mine, there's just an arrow that says up or down.
Oh,
Can't use that key on the side.
And so, also in this other information, you'll have a full listing of the personnel that are employed by the township, their position, their department, their base salary, how much they are paid in benefits. And so you'll have several pages of that broken down by department. I think that's a useful piece of information to have. And, you know, some of the board members carry their, come to every meeting with their budget book. And so if you're wondering how many people work in finance or something, you can go right there and look.
Have we had that before? I like that. I guess I don't remember having that before.
You'll also see several pages in that section of the book where we get into some long-term forecasts. This is useful. You know, we spend time looking at an annual budget, make certain decisions, spend certain amounts of money, receive certain amounts of money, and we always want to be conscious of what that's setting us up for down the road. And so you can look at these. There's a long-term forecast for the general fund, the fire fund, both those being tax millage supported. And there's also long-term forecasts in here for the east and west DDA funds, because they are primarily supported by essentially tax revenues as well. Yeah, thank you. So I'm not going to go through any of these in detail, but I'm just kind of acquainting you with what the physical budget book looks like. Then, again, in your other information, you'll begin to see some historical data. This is a graph of the taxable value for each of the tax years going back to the last 10 years. So you can see how those have grown pretty slowly. There was a big spike in 2015. Values went up a little over 7%. The current year taxable values are going up a little over 5%. That's going to be a combination of new development and I'll call it the inflationary component that's capped at 5% or inflation, whichever is greater. Inflation has been going up, so that may not be too surprising. But it's just kind of interesting information to look back. This is a big one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like this one.
This is the general fund balance, and we're showing two things here. On the left axis, we're showing the nominal dollar value of the fund balance at the end of the various years that are reported there. And if you just look at the purple bars, you would think that it's just going up, up, up. What we look at a little bit more than the nominal dollar value is the percent, is the percentage of fund balance compared to operating expenses. And that is the blue line lined up against the right axis. And you can see that that peaked in about 2019. There's been a conscious effort, decision, if you will, by the board to begin spending down some of that fund balance. And you can see that that's been occurring as a percentage of expenditures. We've been reducing our fund balance from a high of 300%, which is basically saying you have enough money in the bank to operate the township for 3 years without collecting a dollar in taxes. The proposed budget in front of you, or the recommended budget, is projecting to end the year where fund balance is 150% of expenditures. So instead of having 3 years of money in the bank as you did in 2019, this would suggest that you have a year and a half of expenditures in the bank. That's still a very, very healthy fund balance. So, and state revenue, that's actually our largest source of revenue. Many communities, it's property taxes. For the township, it's state shared revenue. We only collect 1 mil of operating millages. And you can see how that went up quite a bit in 21. In 22, it's leveled off a little bit, but these are still dollar amounts that are considerably smaller than what they used to be coming from the state, as the state has, particularly in the mid-2000s, and since then they've often balanced their budget by removing the non-constitutional component of state shared revenue. And so I think that's and then we have a capital plan. I think this was in the budget last year as well. But the capital plan for the next 5 years is outlined there. That'll be in your budget book. It is printed on a larger piece of paper that's folded in the book, so hopefully you can read it when you open it up. And then, so that's just kind of how the budget book's set up. I may go back and see. Generally speaking, it's the same setup, these reports, as you've seen the prior year. You have account numbers, account descriptions, 2021 year activity, and then you have amended budgets and projected year-end activity. There's a requested budget column, which came from the various department heads, and then a recommended budget, which is what I've done with the requested budgets. And in the main, they are very similar. I am going to take just a moment more, not a lot of time, and just touch on some of the highlights that you'll find in your transmittal memo. You'll be able to read all this at home at your leisure, but just to give you a sense, the focus of this recommendation is to advance the ends as outlined in your policy. And for the general fund, total appropriations that's being recommended, a little over $3,082,000. State shared revenue, as you saw from the graph, is pretty flat from the prior year. There are no staffing changes recommended in this budget, increases or decreases. Employee health care, dental, and vision expenses are projected to go up 8%, 4% and 5% respectively. It's a little higher on the vision and dental than it had been, and the when we developed this budget, we were using 8%. We have gotten some more recent communication that for our renewals, where the renewal increases will be closer to 5%. So that's good news that's come out since we were putting this together. We are funding the cleanup day again this year. There are funds in the general fund budget for various sidewalk projects of $925,000. You'll see that in when you read your memo. We also have funding for some road projects in the general fund, $175,000 to support the signal at Bamber and Pickard, and then and also that's not all for that project, but the 175 also includes what we're thinking we're going to be asked to support on Broomfield down to Mission Road. So we have money in there for roads as well. Also, a couple trucks are being,
Down to Mission, sorry.
I'm sorry,
You said down to Mission?
I'm sorry,
Isabella.
Broomfield from
Oh,
Mission
yeah.
to Isabella.
The other side.
Thank you.
I had it in my head the rest
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
As it
Paying
relates,
the whole thing.
Might as well.
you'll be just about the whole thing once we're done with it. The fire fund continues to receive support from the east and west DDAs. The DDAs capture millage, so they capture township operating millage, they capture township fire millage, and the DDA agrees that it only makes sense for them to return some of that money because the areas that they're responsible for certainly need fire protection. That's the logic there. We are building fund balance in the fire fund for the eventual 18 years now. We buy a new fire truck every 20 or so years, and we build fund balance so that we can essentially pay cash for that when we need to. So you'll see those in your long-term projections each year. You'll see those fund balances growing, and that's intentional.
So 18 years from now, there'll probably be an electric fire truck.
I think so.
Probably.
Wonder, you know?
In the EDA budget, the EDA did review earlier this month, it might have been even earlier this week. Excuse me. They have approved their budget. Doesn't mean much until the Board of Trustees approves it. But they are also recommending to the Board of Trustees that you approve the EDA budget that's in this book. Excuse me. There's $200,000 in the EDA budget to begin to look at Packard Road, not Pickard Road, Packard Road, which the supervisor referenced a few minutes ago, along also $200,000 for Corporate Drive. There's $340,000 in the EDA budget for sidewalk projects on the east side of Bud Street and around the Jamison Park from Pickard. There's money budgeted to install a new gateway sign out at southwest corner of M20 in Somerton there at our corporate limits.
Nice.
So that's all part of the EDA's budget. The West EDA
Do
has...
you mind if I jump in? Is that okay?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out too, I had mentioned that industrial zone, but if you remember, the township took over property that from a lady that had passed away on Jonathan Lane. Not that she passed there, but she owned the property there, it went delinquent. We ended up taking that property, demolishing it. And part of the EDA plan as well, in their budget that's being proposed, is a pathway through that, connecting those two neighborhoods, which in the discussions in the last EDA meeting were that was a positive item in there, so, thank you.
Certainly. Looking at the West EDA budget, that appropriation is $168,000. Both EDA and West EDA contain funding for the grant programs that we created this year. We have not received any applications yet, but there's a beautification piece and I think an access piece that we're budgeting for again next year. Funds budgeted in the West EDA to plow the snow off the sidewalks that have been recently installed that are within the West EDA boundaries. The East EDA pays for sidewalk plowing up on Pickard within their boundaries. So they thought that made some sense. The West EDA year-end fund balance is projected to be just over $1 million. And I'm not quite sure what all's going on yet with the West EDA. A few years ago, the idea was we were going to be accumulating funding to help pay for Lincoln Road north of the river to M20. I'm just not sure where that is in the road commission's mind anymore. If that is getting close to being talked about or not, but it would make sense for the West EDA to have some funds available when that time comes. The sewer fund, total appropriation there is a little over $5 million. You will see revenue increases, rate increases in that budget in the water. On the water side, 5.1%. You'll recall the study that we had done by United Financial Services a couple years ago, and they reviewed all that and recommended that we have routine rate adjustments so that there's not sticker shock when you don't do anything, and then 10 years down the road, it's through the roof. So that's in this budget, along with the other various fees that we charge that are primarily designed. We're trying to get them to a place where they're where we're recouping the expenses through charging the fees for like hookups and some of those kind of things, where we send out folks, we spend our time and money, we charge a fee to recoup that. It's not a usage type of arrangement. There is, this came up, and I know we're still in the middle of some of these discussions, there is $500,000 of ARPA funds recommended to support pump station number 1 in this budget for you all to consider, along as you consider the rest of your ARPA uses. Capital maintenance projects included in this budget. Most of these are you're used to hearing them because we like to make sure we're doing them every year. Lift station maintenance, there's $110,000 budgeted for that. Pump station maintenance, same thing, $110,000, so we can keep up on our routine maintenance. A couple other smaller ones as it relates to new capital, what I consider new capital projects. We're going to try to get pump station number 1 done this year. That's budgeted a little over $1 million. We're going to look at trying to rebuild pump station number 5. We have $560,000 budgeted in here for that. And then upgrades to pump station 2, we have $225,000 budgeted there. Sewer fund, similar story. There'll be a rate increase recommended in here that follows the studies that were done. And the idea there is that we have enough, there's several financial targets that you're trying to manage: cash on hand, debt ratios, working capital. one goes up, the other's likely to go down, so that it's kind of a juggling act. So you try to set your rates and your income based on your expenses, your capital program, that you fall within those ranges that are recommended, and that's what we attempt to do by building these budgets and having these rate increases. In the water fund, $200,000 of ARPA funds to help pay for the high service pump project out on River Road. Again, capital maintenance for water mains, hydrant repairs, $105,000. New capital projects on the sewer side, $364,000 for the River Road high service pump installation that I just mentioned. The fees, you'll see a lot of more than you're used to in terms of changes to the fee schedule across the entire township. And those are, again, were particularly on the land use side. You know, we don't feel, and the board so far has not felt that, like, for instance, the general taxpayer should pay for the ad that needs to be run to do a text amendment on a zoning ordinance, that maybe the person or the company that's requesting that should pay for it. Those kinds of things. You'll see that throughout. And then you'll also see escrow deposit recommendations where you didn't see them before. And again, what we're asking for is these developers to put money up front so that we don't have to cash flow that project. The money gets drawn out against those escrow funds. There's reconciliations done, and then unused monies are returned to the developer. So at a very high level, that is, I think, the highlights of the budget. I would anticipate that we'll have more detailed discussion after you all have a chance to digest the document in years past, and we can do it however you all end up being comfortable. But in years past, we've had everything from special meetings held on different days than a board meeting to holding, to starting having a budget meeting prior to the Wednesday board meeting. But we can get to those details later. So thank you. I'm done with my manager comments.
Okay. Any general comments or questions? Again, we'll have more opportunity to go at this. Thank you, Trustee Hout. So that brings us to item 14 on our agenda, final board member comment. Let's see, I started with Trustee Bills last time. Trustee Hout.
All right, I got a couple things. Mark, we talked at our last meeting that we were gonna get a list of ARPA funds where we could rate like 1, 2, 3, if there's 8 of them, you know, we could rate number 5 as a number 1 or whatever.
Right.
Just wondered about that. You would also mention that Roger, Representative Hauk, had gotten in touch with you about some possible funds that would be maybe coming from the state there. You said they have a lot of excess money or whatever. Wasn't there a discussion that Roger called you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Roger showed up, said, hey, there's gonna be a lot of money. If something comes across my desk, he wants a wish list, and we're in the process of getting that to him.
Okay. And then, I just answered a question for myself looking at the budget. If I were to get elected to the Isabella County Road Commission in the general election on the 8th, seeing that the budget process and everything, we would approve that the 14th of December, I would resign that night. I want to be able to, because I don't know, if I don't get elected, I still want to be able to approve the budget and everything for the following 2 years I'd be eligible to be on here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, but if I were to get elected, I would resign the 14th, and then that way there's no other meeting in December, but that would give some time, at least right now, people know that. So, you know, maybe start thinking of some people. I mean, I have a couple people in mind, so.
So you wouldn't want to go until, because I think that term
It
would
says
start on
December
the.
31st, but,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that?
well, I would probably do it the 14th. That way it'd give us a couple more weeks to try to find someone.
Gives you less time.
It could take us a
It would give
couple
me
weeks,
less
though.
time on the board, but.
It
holidays
gives
is not
us
time
less
then.
time
Oh,
to
yeah.
find
We're not going to be.
someone else,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
I'd like to see you stay on, Bill,
Yeah.
and see it all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, because
Well-
you're already neck deep into it, in the discussion. If, let's just say in a perfect world, the day you resign, we got somebody in, they wouldn't necessarily be,
But I don't think I can vote on that person.
You
No,
can't.
yeah, I can't.
Right, I mean,
Or
that's what
deliberate.
the.
But at the
from
same,
lawyer's side.
but at the same time, you're gonna work on the budget with us regardless.
Right.
And we would like you to be a trustee till the end of the year.
All right.
And
Yeah, I
you
think
you
so
were
too.
elected to
Think it
do
through.
that.
Yeah.
could he stand up and make a comment during the time and
No.
regarding his
No.
feelings?
You have to do a resigned letter.
No,
Oh.
I'm talking about he can't vote. But he
No.
could give a,
Can't.
he could,
No,
right. I'm saying he can't vote. You're telling me he can't.
he can't give his feelings about
He
it.
can't go to the podium and say, I would recommend the budget.
No, he's out of
Right.
the discussion of that
Unless
topic.
you can't have, vote and deliberate.
You can't what?
Vote and deliberate.
No, I'm not asking him to vote. I'm saying like right now,
He can't give his opinion. It's just like if you're on the planning commission and you have to step back because you have something, like where you have to.
there's not a conflict though, is there? Where's the conflict?
It's just, that's
It's
the law.
the same rule, same law, is what I'm saying.
What are you guys talking about
I
specifically?
know, I'm thinking we're talking about.
Yeah, I think
I'm
we're
kinda
In order to
confused
vote a new
myself
person
here.
in.
No, that's not what
I'm
James
not
is
talking-
saying.
Oh, what are you talking about?
The
I'm
budget.
talking about the budget. I'm sorry. I thought we were.
He said the budget.
Oh,
Just
yeah, I
the-
didn't
The
even hear
budget,
that
we
part.
would approve the
Yeah.
14th.
We just vote on that like normal.
Yeah.
Everything's normal. He's still.
Okay, that's all
Yeah.
I'm talking about is the budget. I'm not talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking
Yeah.
about
No,
voting.
I- I
no,
just
no,
can't-
no.
I was
No.
going in two different
Yeah.
directions.
I thought that too.
I wanted. To, I'm sorry.
Okay, no big deal.
You jumped and I unfortunately stayed where I was standing. So.
But I do, on this point, and I'm sorry, I know you're commenting, but
No,
I had
that's
sent
fine.
out a memo from the attorney a little while ago. I think everybody should
Yep.
review that again, because there are certain incompatibility, can't hold two offices at one
Right.
time. And I think the swearing-in date for road commission
January 1st.
elections is, once you're sworn in, and I think it's before, I know that's when your term starts, but there's some nuance in that memo. And so let's just take a look at that before we
Oh,
Okay.
get too
that's fine. You have
far
to be
ahead.
sworn
Good
in
point.
within a certain amount of time.
Thank you.
After being voted.
Whatever
in.
time we can absorb, I guess, would be beneficial.
Oh, yeah, as long as he can be on there, as long as he can be on there, the better.
Can I take that out of the comment?
Yeah, take it out of that.
The last part?
Yeah, take the last part of the comment.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, thank you. Sorry for the spiral. Clerk Cody? Trustee Thering?
I am good, thank you.
Trustee Bills?
I would like to make a comment based on what Mr. LaBelle said tonight. You know, I think it's unfortunate that we have to hear comments like that, and without specific details, it's impossible for us to know what's going on. And really, it seems to be that we've heard a few of these kind of comments in the past. And without looking at, back at all the planning commission meetings and seeing what actually, transpires there, it's impossible to even know what's going on. But I don't think any of us has the time to do that, you know? And so I just think that's unfortunate. And I don't know what to do about that. But that would lead me to my next comment, which is that I think we need to reach out to the community. And I'm gonna bring that up in some more detail at a different meeting when everybody's here. That's all I have.
Thanks. On one note, our treasurer's out tonight. I hope she gets well quick. She's home not feeling well. But with that, she sits as the liaison to the sidewalk committee. And she communicated with me today that they have a meeting tomorrow, as our director had mentioned, from 6:30 to 8:30. And she said, I might be able to make it. They might not have a quorum. But just in case, do we have a backup from one of the trustees, this board, that would like to sit in? So I want to float that out there.
I have a seminar all weekend.
I'd love to, I'm not available.
And I haven't been able to check yet if I'm available, but I have interest, so, but, no?
I haven't.
No.
Okay. I'll try,
I
but
might
I
stretch,
can't
I'm
promise it here that if she's absent that I can make it.
What time is the meeting?
6:30 to 8:30. You know, in
I
part,
can text you tomorrow. In the morning? I'm sorry, it's tomorrow night, I'm sorry.
tomorrow night.
I don't know where my head is, tomorrow night.
Well, if for some reason I'm not able to and Kim's not able to and they expect a quorum, I'll just put out a text or something that,
Would you
Last
do
opportunity.
that? Cause
yeah.
I might, I won't know till I get home.
And that's fine. I just wanted to, she asked that I kind of ask that on her behalf.
Sure.
Because that's our responsibility when we can't make our liaison appointments. Can we pick someone else from this board to fill in the spot? I want to comment on Mr. LaBelle's comments as well. And I think Trustee Howe brought this up at one point, but I don't understand the feeling of repercussion or backlash. That is a disturbing feeling, and I don't know where that's rooted in, and I don't profess to understand it enough to even qualify what that means. And I guess it speaks to Trustee Bill's comments a little bit. I don't have a grasp on that. But if it's real, it'd be nice to cure that.
Yeah.
And obviously, how someone feels is real. But is that a common feeling, or is this an anecdotal outlier? I don't know. Because I hear opposite comments from developers too. I hear both sides. I hear positive and negative, and so it's hard for me to quantify without something more scientific or some kind of data collection on how we'd be better about not putting roadblocks in front of development that meets what our master plan says, which is the community that we want to build. So I mean, it's a continued concern, and I'm not sure how to address it either. So I support your comments.
Can I say something too?
Absolutely.
So also with regard to the fees, there's a whole fee structure, including property taxes, which I think we are way lower than our city that we surround. So, there's opportunity. You have to factor in upfront costs versus long-term costs. And I don't know where it could possibly be a better opportunity than in Union Township around here for consumers, to have consumers or even employees come to your business, so.
But there are obviously some people that feel that way, and that's,
Yeah.
some of it may be old school when the township was much smaller, and, we've had to grow up a little bit as a township, and maybe it's that change that creates some of that. I don't know. It might not be. Maybe it is certain things that we can do better. And, Trustee Howe?
Well, go ahead.
Fees, for example, I think our manager mentioned it. If we really were proactive, we could lower the fees and have all taxpayers pay for it, right? But I don't know, is that where we want to be or not? I don't have the answer to that today. But that's an example of where you could defer some cost onto the backs of everybody else for those that are doing the development. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but that's the type of thing if that's a roadblock, how much is it worth to us?
Well, I had a suggestion to Mark a couple times, and I think he's open to it, that we get a group of people in here, get a couple of the main builders in the area, a couple people from the planning commission, a couple people from the board of trustees, and just come in and let them express their feelings. Let them talk about what they think we should, changes that we could possibly do. I don't know if, we're willing to do that, but a couple citizens at large, maybe, I'm not sure.
I would be interested if there was a way, and we had a discussion like this at our last planning commission meeting. Could we be presented with something that was denied? For example, you come and you want to open up a donut shop, and for whatever reason, it just couldn't be. So we as a planning commission could look at that and go, we agree. Therefore, it answers a question. Then was denied or encouraged to go somewhere else because of zoning. It didn't fit. It wasn't part of the plan. Or we could say, well, maybe we disagree. Maybe we interpret the ordinances differently. That's kind of a can of worms. I don't know if it's possible or not, but it might answer some questions, possibly.
And it may not be that necessarily that the planning commission disagrees with a denial of some sort.
Sure.
But maybe having that data might allow the planning commission to go, here's a theme of why certain projects aren't getting through. Maybe if we reconstruct either the processes or our ordinances, it allows those types of things to happen, because those are something that our master plan speaks to as something we want.
Well, with the master plan being evaluated next year.
It's a good time for that.
Is a good time for that, along with, maybe we could see a pattern of an ordinance that.
And when we did the master plan last time, we did that exactly with appeals, the zoning board of appeals, because things that were being appealed that repeated
Who's commenting?
were potentially an
Is your
obvious
comment?
correction that we needed in the zoning ordinance to avoid those kind of appeals. So I think that'd be some good data to maybe look at.
I'd like to get the ball rolling in some way, because this is becoming more and more of a conversation. So
Yeah.
I think we need to do something to try to come up with some answers, rather than just let it continue to fester.
Yeah, at least understand, I would like to understand better, that's all.
Yeah.
Can I just say,
Yes, clerk?
somebody email me what they want their comments to be, because there is no way we're gonna be able to figure out what you guys are saying in comments. I can't do it like a 30-page report
I think it could be just brief
towards
enough
the end.
that, commenting on public comment this evening. Something like that. Anyways, I was done.
That's what
I think we'll end up having this discussion another time as well, so.
Mark was gonna-
Yeah, we
Yes.
should, before you get too far down the rabbit hole. You,
Should email.
I've never heard of a local developer, a real estate agent, or a builder that didn't want lower whatever going on, and fees or what have you. And it's interesting because the larger the developer and the larger the builder you deal with, the less they're concerned about these kind of things. And in fact, what we hear is that we do a pretty good job. And that's not to say that, we can't do better and all that. And I am more than happy to get a group together. And we have money in our budget to help do some outreach to the business community. but I do get concerned, and, you know, well, it's real easy for you all to get distracted. I have, I don't think I have received one phone call from this complaint to me about something that's going on in that department. And I also don't understand the retaliation concept.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look up the word, I mean, how is the township gonna retaliate against
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? You know, not, what can we do to retaliate? You know, they get a building
Maybe with
permit, they
regard
start
to
to
a-
build, and,
Maybe
Well-
with regard to an appeal to, you know, to a denial, I don't know.
you know, for me to retaliate against you, I have to be harmed by you.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're thinking that it's like a
Well, I-
defamation if you
you know.
speak to one person, yeah.
But I need to be harmed. So how am I being harmed? You know? And the builders, they, now we have some builders and developers, the same company, same hat. But the builder passes along the fees to the developer. You know? So, I know we can always do better, but we saw one article in the paper that went on and on and on, and it was refuted. And we've heard this other more recent thing. These folks aren't shy. They're not bashful people. I can't believe not one of them has come to my office and voiced their concern that they're going to be retaliated against. I mean, these folks are big, powerful, they're, you know, they're not gonna come talk to me.
Like I said, I wish they would.
It's hard to be afraid of me.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I wish they would,
But, so, absent that, you're gonna end up going down a bunch of rabbit holes.
Yep.
And you'll get distracted from what your main mission is. That's all I'm saying. It's something to be cautious of.
And I think it is part of the wheelhouse of the planning commission with the master plan to envision how do we encourage development without sacrificing what the township should become for the residents and businesses that are here based on that vision in the master plan.
Do you guys send out a survey when you do that? Send out a survey to like
They've
the
got one that they're doing
business
now.
community?
There's a survey going up. Is it out or is it going up?
I don't think it's gone out yet, but it's close to going out.
I don't, it asks a lot of questions, but I don't know that, I can't answer that. Because the last time you did the review of the master plan, I wasn't part of it.
Yeah. And
So,
manager did mention as well.
Comment section
No.
versus discussion. I shouldn't have
I-
been involved.
It's okay. Also, the manager mentioned, the EDA does have money budgeted. I don't know if you're referring to the general fund or the EDA, but they have money specific to, business outreach.
Mhm.
And maybe we'll learn some stuff from that as well. That's,
Motion to adjourn.
so moved. Support?
yes.
Motion by Cody, support by Hauk, to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. I'm surprised that was unanimous, but it was.
You're hilarious.